everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Infinite Potential of Being Human podcast. This is I think it's our episode 9. I am Nicky Clinch, and I am your host, and I'm very happy to be here today speaking to you about these amazing and interesting and useful topics about why we are the way that we are as human beings, as a species, and how we are at a cusp right now of our evolution, and how can we start accessing a whole nother level of potential and power and possibility that really is available to every single one of us. So today's episode, I want to speak kind of following on from almost all the other episodes. I've used this phrase, responsibility, which that word in itself is already pretty loaded. It's loaded and it's a trigger. But unfortunately, it is also the gateway and the doorway to us as individuals and also as a species to stepping into and accessing a whole nother level of power that is already there, but we have no access to it without actually choosing to take 100% responsibility for who we're being and how we're living and how we are. So it's a really, really important topic. A new level of power and possibility. How to access a new level of power and possibility through radical ownership, radical responsibility as individuals. And I pause because I was going to say hopefully, but as a vision and an intention as a species. So let's start off with the word itself, which is so loaded. Responsibility. I'm going to say it 5 times and tell me if you can feel the trigger that happens in your body, because it does already for me. Even though I know what I mean by it, it still triggers something in me. Responsibility, 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 responsibility. Can you feel how loaded that word is? Immediately as I say it, something in my body gets triggered, right? I hear grow up. I hear loadedness and weight and burden. I'm back at school and I'm being told off by a teacher, being told off by my parents, paying bills, the burden and the boredom of being a grown-up. There's so much loadedness to it. Responsibility equals boring, or responsibility equals can't play, no fun, or looking at my parents as a child and thinking they don't look very happy. This is all my loadedness to the word, but I'm sharing it with you because if I'm getting triggered and I already know what I'm actually meaning by the word, I wonder whether you are too. The word itself is a trigger. So let's at least just pour it all out right here, right now, rather than ignore that. Usually what we have been conditioned to believe by the word responsibility is somehow blame, and somehow it's attached to guilt or shame or blame. It's my fault or it's your fault. I did something bad. I did something wrong. I should have done better. These are usually what is entangled and attached to the word responsibility. And it comes with an amalgamation of emotions: guilt, shame, fear, anger, rebellion, fuck you. Oh no, am I allowed to say that? I was going to swear really bad. F you. It triggers some kind of relationship that we have with authority, a teacher, a parent, the government. And it's loaded, and the stories and the conditionings that we have had with the word responsibility is not exactly joyful or inspiring, is it? So no wonder most of us really resist it at all. Okay. So that's what I don't mean by responsibility. What do I mean by responsibility? I mean ownership. What I mean by responsibility is 100% ownership. Ready to take full ownership for who you are, for what you want, for what you want that you haven't even told yourself the truth that you want, for the emotions and the experience that moves through you, and for the way the world appears to you. We cannot take ownership for other people's behavior, for other people's actions. We cannot take ownership for anyone else. And yes, people can still be assholes. But are we ready to take 100% ownership of who we are being and how our world appears to us, how our body and body mind gets flooded with experience and emotion that is happening inside us, and also for what we want, and even for how we don't tell ourselves what we want. That is what I mean by responsibility. Because the moment that we are ready to make that kind of commitment, we are standing at the doorway of an entirely new possibility of power, a completely new access to another level of power. And when I mean power, I don't mean dominance and force, forcefulness and pushing and strength, not the kind of strength we've been shown, which is like physical forcing and pushing. In fact, most of the leaders that we have had in our world are not mirroring or are not modeling to us real power. They're modeling to us dominance and force. Real power is when someone is completely in ownership of who they really are. They are so responsible for who they are. They're so responsible for what they want. They're so responsible for telling the truth. There's a kind of a peace and a groundedness and a presence to them. They're responsible for how their world appears to them and their want on how they want to create their world. When you are around someone who's really in their power, they feel safe because they're in complete ownership of themselves. That's real power. Power is not something to do. Power is what we must allow through by clearing away everything that's getting in the way of it. So 100% ownership and responsibility. That means if you're new to this podcast, please go and listen to the first 8 episodes before this one. That means that whatever is repeating in our life is happening from where we are re-experiencing the past inside of us, and it is coloring how we see the world. We are the ones generating the repeating. What is flooding our system is happening inside us. The way that I keep seeing intimacy, or men, or women, or the government, or money, or business, or finances, or bills, appears to me the way it appears to me because of where I'm looking from. All these pieces are points from which we can start taking ownership of, not blaming ourselves, not shaming ourselves and not guilting ourselves, but taking ownership. I was leading a Listening to Life program, the one that I just led in July. And we had a participant in the program, and it was who really struggled with what responsibility meant and what we meant by it. In fact, in the middle of the program, her little 4-year-old daughter was banging on the door, crying her eyes out because she had an ear infection. And this participant was getting really, really upset and angry and with me. And she said to me, "What do you mean? Be responsible for being the source of my own experience?" Because she is banging on the door, and and she is needing me. And I said, "Well, yes, okay, let's break this down. Your daughter is banging on the door. That's true. She does have an ear infection. That's also true. But what is flooding your body right now as she's banging on the door?" And so she talked me through it. She was like, absolute flooding of guilt and shame. The panic of my daughter experiencing the abandonment and the betrayal and the dismissal I experienced when I was a child. Fear of her being in pain. My own grief and sadness of hearing a child's cry. It reminds me of my own. Like, I literally could list like 50 things to what she said. And as she spoke them out loud, I said, "And where is all of that happening?" And she was like, "Whoa, it's all happening inside me." I said, "Exactly." And if you are unwilling to be in ownership that what is happening inside you is being generated inside of you from the memory bank of your mind, from your context is your past. And your past is flooding your entire system with your pain and trauma, what you experienced, the fear and the sadness of you as a child. And all of that is flooding your system and coloring how you experience your sweet daughter banging on the door with an ear infection. So no, you can't be responsible for her banging on the door with an ear infection, but you can take ownership that an entire 40 years of your past is coloring how you experience her banging on the door with an ear infection. And how you experience her banging on the door with an ear infection gives you how you behave and how you react and how you respond. And she was like, "Whoa." And I said, "Yes, exactly." When we are ready to take ownership, and I will go into it, what that even means and looks like, for like 40 years of past that is flooding us right now in the present, and then we react to it, and that gives us our actions. When we're ready to start taking ownership that we are the source of our own experience of reality, meaning our memory bank is flooding us and giving us our experience of reality. She's not just experiencing her daughter banging on the door with an ear infection. She's experiencing her daughter banging on the door with an ear infection, and that means that she's going to be deeply traumatized and suffering just the way that I did when I was a little girl, and I'm such a bad mother, and I'm abandoning her, and my daughter's going to be in the absolute pain that I was, and I'm such a failure, and and I have so much shame and guilt, and I'm such... Can you hear it? We don't just deal with daughter banging on door with an ear infection as if it's just daughter banging on door with ear infection, which as a mother, I know what that feels like. But we don't just deal with it that way. We bring 40, 50, 30 years of history into that present moment in time, and that gives us our actions and behaviors and the way we deal with it. And then we wonder why we keep repeating the same old past. We don't even just see what is actually there. We have 40 years of history coloring how we see. And so that's the first step. We are the source of our entire experience of reality. The way the money in your bank account appears to you in correlation from the context from where you see. That was a whole episode. Context gives us content. Now, are we ready to take 100% ownership of being the source of our entire experience of reality? I'm not saying being the source of everything that happens. I mean being the source of how you experience what's happening. And when you're ready to say yes to that question, you're ready to access a whole nother level of power. Because when I then worked with that client, that participant, and she was in Listening to Life, I was able to help her stop resisting what was moving through her in that exact moment. Yes, it was her past. Yes, it was painful. In fact, it was deeply uncomfortable. But it was her past. It was her past. And so I was able to help her be with the past, right here in the present, without running away, without resisting, without trying to manage it, without trying to fix it. Just being with it. Now, being with it is not passive. And I apologize for even using the word just, because that somehow makes it seem like it's a small thing to do. No, it's a massive thing to do. Being with the past that is flooding us right now in the present. Being with is bringing consciousness and awareness. We see with our own conscious awareness how the past is flooding our entire system and coloring what is appearing. If you let in all the episodes leading up to this one, that all gives you the teachings of how we can start having that kind of awareness. Conscious awareness of what is flooding our system, internal environment, that colors how the external environment is appearing. Consciousness and awareness that the past is here right now. Not just similar, the same. And then, and here's the hard part, whilst consciously seeing, we quite literally open our entire body and our energy field, and instead of pulling away, which is a state of resistance, which is a state of management and control and running away, and that leads us back into the vicious circle and the survival mechanisms, the survival patterns and the survival identity. No, instead of pulling away, consciously opening our whole body and energy field and leaning towards it. I will feel this without getting lost in it and without pulling away. I am ready now to take ownership of my past that is flooding the present. And it is not easy. In fact, at the beginning, it's like working a muscle that's never been used before at the gym. And you're not going to get it perfect, but it's like, in fact, I'm willing to start trying. And at the beginning, it's like so uncomfortable because you are being with all the shame and the fear and everything you've been running from. This is the past moving through me. It is nothing to do with the present, but it is painful. Now, I really mean it. It is not easy. In fact, it is, and it's also not passive. It's a profoundly conscious, active action. Being is not a doing thing. It's a state of presence. I will be with the past here, now, and I won't try and run from it, push it away, control it, manage it. I am ready to be responsible for this. It's like being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and all you have is a rowboat with holes in it. And you know the rowboat has holes in it. And everything in your survival instinct wants to grip hold of the boat, even though you consciously know that the boat will take you down. And that's like us gripping onto the same old survival patterns, even though they don't work, even though we know it's going to take us down, even though, but it's like an animalistic instinct to grip on. And being with, taking ownership is like being ready to surrender, letting go of the rowboat. You have no idea what's going to catch you. You have no idea where you're going to land, but you have had enough of the survival that you are ready to surrender and lean back into the Pacific Ocean. Not drown, but consciously surrender and lean back and let yourself be with all that moves through you, which usually will be like fear and terror. Am I going to drown? Am I going to make it? It's like, I am so done with that rowboat that I know doesn't even work. Surrender and lean back and breathe with consciousness. I'm going to take ownership. Doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's comfortable. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it right. It doesn't mean anything except you have made a choice to stop giving your power away and start owning a whole nother level of power. Back to that participant I was working with in Listening to Life. When she was ready to take full ownership of how her reality was appearing to her, given to her by what was flooding her, it was very painful at first, but the moment she stopped resisting, even though it was still moving through her, she dropped into a space of real stillness and presence. And guess what? When she did go and help her daughter, she was able to deal with it from a very different place. And there was no drama. She was still present, conscious. That's how powerful she is. That's how powerful you are. The moment we stop resisting what is moving through us, what is blinding us, what is coloring how we see, we choose presence and power. And of course, that gives us a whole nother set of choices on how to behave and react and respond to external reality. And that, of course, then colors how we deal with life. And then that is what creates different results in life. Accessing a whole nother level of power. So right here, right now, I guess the question for you is, when responsibility no longer means blame, shame, or guilt, and that means not even blaming yourself, but the fact that you are human and you have the same survival mechanism as every other human being on the planet, are you ready to take ownership of what has been moving through you? And if the answer is no, are you ready to start getting ready? because that's good enough too, right? It's wherever you are, but at least ask yourself the question. And don't make yourself wrong for whatever you answer or right. It's not about right or wrong. It's about you tapping into another place within yourself, because you are actually the one that has all the power. So I hope you found that useful. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Please do share your comments, aha moments, insights in the comments below the video, or you can write to us directly at support@nickyklinch.com. Or please do share this episode with as many people as you think it will be beneficial to. Friends, family, parents, children, partners. If you are human, this relates to you. If you do want to support us at this podcast, please do go to Apple and write a review and give us a star rating, because it is the best way to have this podcast spread far and wide to as many people as we can reach. And for now, I just really thank you for being here. What we're talking about here is not easy, but sometimes we have to be willing to dissolve what has been getting in our way in order to birth something that we haven't been able to see yet. Our infinite potential. This is the Infinite Potential of Being Human podcast, and I am Nicky Clinch, your host. Thank you so much for listening.